Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson and I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, can you all please mute your microphones for the moment in order to improve the sound quality whilst I outline the procedure? Can you also please turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members, unless you're the person speaking. This is to reduce the bandwidth. Could everyone attending today's meeting please put their microphones on silent and ensure that they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios, TVs, etc. Thank you for that. I'll be speaking slowly and clearly so everyone can follow. It is vitally important, for what I hope are obvious reasons, that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I also confirm this is a public meeting and therefore is being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. I advise this is a public meeting. It will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, which can be accessed via the link in the agenda that members of the press public may record and take photographs, except where there are confidential or exempt items. Members are reminded that they must declare any relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Apologies were submitted on behalf of Councillor Davis and I, Councillor Donaldson, was a nominated substitute member. Members to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of June 2021 at 1200 hours. Agreed. Can I welcome to this hearing for an application in respect of Robina's Pizza, 1187 Bristol Road South, Northfield, Birmingham, B31 2SL. I'll begin with some introductions. As stated previously, I'm Councillor Diane Donaldson and I'm chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Wells and Bob Beecham. Also present in this meeting are the following officers: Licensing Officer David Kennedy.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Committee Manager, Meeting Manager Katie Townsend.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. And Committee Lawyer Joanne Swampillai.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Could I ask all parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, Gulzar Ahmedzai.
Yes, Gulzar Ahmedzai is here, yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Rahman, representing the applicant.
Yes, Chair, Mr. Rahman from Allerton and Gladstone Solicitors.
Good afternoon. Next, those making representations, Licensing Enforcement, Sarah Lavender.
Good afternoon, Chair. Yeah, Sarah Lavender, Licensing Enforcement.
Good afternoon. And Jason Bensai.
Yeah, Jason BJ, on behalf of the residents, School Close and Bristol Road South, Chair.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Jason. Could I ask if any persons making representations wish to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
Thank you.
No, Chair.
Thank you. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but wish to assure you that any such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing.
We agree,
Thank you.
Chair.
We'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. One of the icons on your toolbar is a speech bubble. Click the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access to the chat function for any reason, please use the raise a hand function to indicate that you wish to speak. That button is usually fourth from the right on the toolbar. You can also, of course, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Can you all confirm that you have access to the chat facility by typing your own name now? Officers will also type their job title. This meeting will not proceed until you all have done so.
Let's have one, Chair.
Thank you, Katie. Please keep this chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting in order that everyone can follow the messages being posted in the chat. If any participant has dialed in on an auto telephone rather than Microsoft Teams, please speak now to confirm that you can hear and be heard. I don't think anyone's dialing in today. With the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there are any problems with bandwidth, which could cause difficulties with the sound, I may, in my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off in order that the meeting can proceed with everyone able to hear and be heard. Does anyone wish to make any preliminary points at this stage? If so, please indicate that you wish to raise a point by typing speak into the chat function or using the raise a hand function now. Thank you. I'll now briefly outline the procedure which will be following at today's hearing. Firstly, the Licensing Officer, David Kennedy, will present the report. Then the applicant and their representative will be asked to present their case. We're asking if this can be kept to approximately 20 minutes. Then those making representations will be invited to make their case. Again, approximately 20 minutes will be allowed for this part of the hearing. Can ask all parties to speak as slowly and as clearly as they possibly can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes. And the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. If at any time it is somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone and use the chat function to communicate if necessary. Please note that members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or those present, Please signify this using the chat facility set out on the right-hand side of the screen you're viewing this meeting on. The meeting manager will alert me if I do not notice messages in the chat. I will determine verbally or in writing the chat facility the order in which questions are dealt with. Additionally, you may also seek to notify a question or point verbally in the usual way at the appropriate point. So at any point in the meeting, if you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function and the meeting manager will ensure that we come to you at the appropriate moment. If at any point you cannot hear or you're having problems with your internet connection, please use the chat function to alert the meeting manager. The chair will then ask the person speaking to repeat what they have just said. It is therefore important that you use the chat function as soon as you're unable to hear the person speaking. It may well be that there's a problem caused by people having their microphones or cameras on, which creates interference. So I'll remind everyone to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras when you're not the person speaking. Could I point out occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in this meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this meeting and continue. Please note that if any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website fails, I will ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time this meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of this meeting is over, I will ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. Can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard? At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from this meeting in order to determine the decision. They will go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that the members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. Notifications of the determination of the application will be sent out to all parties within 5 working days. I hope that's reasonably straightforward. So with that, can I ask the licensing officer, David Kennedy, to present the report, please, as slowly and clearly as you can, please.
Thank you, Chair. Gulzar Khan Ahmedzai applied on the 27th of August 2021 for the grant of a premises licence for Rubino's Pizza, 1187 Bristol Road South, Northville, Birmingham, B31 2SL. The purpose of the report today is to consider representations that have been made in respect of the application, which seeks to permit the provision of late night refreshment for consumption off the premises to operate from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. Monday to Sunday, with the premises to remain open to the public from 12 midday until 2 a.m. Monday to Sunday. A representation has been received from Birmingham City Council's Licensing Enforcement as a responsible authority, which is attached to Appendix 1. A representation has been received from another person, which is attached to Appendix 2. The application is attached to Appendix 3. The hearing was initially scheduled to be considered on Monday the 18th of October. However, the solicitor for the applicant submitted additional documents at 17:39 hours on the Friday before the meeting. The subcommittee decided that the hearing should be adjourned to today in order that the additional documents could be disclosed and considered by those who have made representations against the application, and so that an appropriately redacted version could be published. A copy of that decision is attached to Appendix 4. As part of the additional documents submitted by the applicant's legal representative, the applicant has reduced the terminal hour for licensable activities being sought by the application to 23.59 hours daily, or such other hours as the licensing authority may deem fit. The detail of that reduction is on page 45 of the published agenda pack. Site location plans are attached at Appendix 5. When carrying out its licensing functions, the licensing authority must have regard to Bermondsey City Council's statement of licensing policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Act. The authority is required to take such steps as it considers appropriate to promote the four licensing objectives. The options available to the committee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application as modified, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, or exclude from the licence any of the licensed activities to which the application relates. Thank you, Chair.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I'll move on to the applicant's presentations. Would the applicant or their representative like to make their presentation now, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody in attendance. Thank you for giving my client the opportunity to make representations. Chair, my client submitted some supplementary documents, and licensing officer David Kennedy referred to that. I thank him as well for that. Yes, he has quite helpfully brought to the committee's attention that our client is willing to reduce the hours to 11:59 or such other conditions that the committee feels appropriate in the circumstances. In my client's submissions, my client will submit that he has taken over these premises. He doesn't know the ongoings of the previous owner or what conditions he's breached of his license. However, as a new applicant who is completely unrelated to the previous owner, he is committed to complying with any conditions which forms part of the licensing in order for him to operate his business. It may well be that there might be some confusion in relation to Mr. Gulzar Khan Ahmad Zai and the previous owner, who also happens to belong to the same tribe, Ahmad Zai. This Ahmad Zai is a tribal name. It doesn't mean that they are related or anything. My instructions are they're unrelated. They have no connection whatsoever. And the allegations against the previous owner, my client is unable to comment on them because my client was not the subject of those allegations. Now, I understand that there's going to be representation from the residents there. Those representations may well be significant in your decision-making process, but what I would submit on behalf of my client, that it does not necessarily suggest that the propensity of my client is going to be to breach or to cause any unnecessary, should we say, unnecessary discomfort to the residents. My client intends to run his business as a businessman, and he obviously will take into consideration what's happened before with the previous owner and the concerns of the residents, and he will make every effort to address those concerns insofar as that it doesn't cause any discomfort to the residents. He is a businessman. He just wants to run his business, and he wants to do it in a way in which it complies with the licensing regime and complies with the consensus of the residents. Those are my submissions. Unless I can assist further, Chair, those I would like you to take those submissions into consideration when you arrive at your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Would Mr. Ahmedzai like to make any comments?
Do you wish to, you are invited now by the chair to make any submissions that you want the chair and the committee members to take into consideration?
The things only I can say. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a normal person. I've never been involved in these kind of things before. I've been living in Birmingham City Council area for 21 years. Never had an issue in anywhere with the Birmingham City Council or any other issues. Have a good experience in the same business. Take the business over, but recently I'd noticed there is a lot of issue was previously with the license, so he breached the condition. But only I can do much as I will do much as I can to comfortable the local residents or not, because I need the things that has happened before. For that sake, I order extra bins just to keep the area clear and cooperative with the licensing timing. And I'll do much as I can to minimize and to avoid the things happen before. Only I can say that few things. I will try my best 100%. I added a few extra bins to cover and clear the area clean. I added a few CCTV cameras outside and inside to keep eyes on my workers, what exactly they're doing. And I will be there myself as well. And hopefully what happened before there, I don't want this to be repeat again. And really I'll be 100% fully trying to that not happen again in the area and not cause any trouble. I can give it a guarantee, I can assure for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmedzai. I'll now move over to members. Are there any questions from members?
Yes, please, Chairman.
Councillor Beecher?
One or two things really. First of all, this I will do my best to. I bought some dustbins side of things. They have to be complied with, not do your best, but do it. And I feel that we want something more secure than I will keep my eye on and I will do my best. Secondly, have you taken over the business premises?
Have you taken over the business premises?
Yes.
That's affirmative, sir.
In what manner have you taken them over?
In what manner have you taken?
As a new business, as an owner.
As the owner. As the owner, he's taken on the business.
So you will have letters of discharge from the one person to the other and proof of the ownership that you can show us?
Yes, I do have that, yes.
Yes. So if I may just clarify that with the permission of the chair.
Yes, Mr. Rahman, go ahead.
Chair, normally, I mean, you know, when businesses are transferred, agreements are signed, and do you have those agreements?
Yes, I do.
Did you use solicitors or did you?
Yes, I used solicitor.
Okay, so he has used solicitors, and it appears that the business has been transferred.
Thank you for that, the clarification.
But if I can say, as the purchase of the property itself, or as a rented property?
Did you purchase? Did you take over the business, or did you take over the whole premises?
No, I took over the business and I got the lease from the owner.
All right, sir, that is a transfer of a going concern, and he's taken over the lease of the property.
Why have these papers not been shown to us?
So if I can answer that, the papers, because we have prepared for the concerns contained in the report provided by the licensing officers. However, if the committee is minded, they can make that as part of the condition of granting the license to produce these papers before the licensing committee.
I think that's rather essential.
Yes, sir, absolutely. If that is the decision you reach, then my client will have to provide those papers to you. But we do not have those papers at hand for this meeting today.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. Thank you, Councillor Beecham. Are there any further questions from members?
If I may, Chair, it's Martin Strake-Wells. I'm referring to the licensing objectives and who will actually make them work. So who has the ultimate responsibility for ensuring that the licensing objectives are upheld? Because those are the things that drive this particular committee. We have to be absolutely certain that they will be adhered to. Clearly, there's evidence that in the past they have not been. Who will make them work?
Is that a question to my client, sir?
Yes, please, yes.
Okay. Did you understand that question?
No,
right. Okay. The good councillor has said, right, the licensing objectives, all right, who is going to be responsible for meeting those objectives?
I will be responsible, and I will take that responsibility to meet these.
Sir, you've heard my client's response.
Yes, thank you. Can I add another question? When a business carries a reputation which perhaps is not the reputation you would like, how are you going to ensure that there isn't a carryover from the previous business to your business? How are you intending to change the reputation of the business?
Did you understand that?
I will keep the changes is what happened before. I am positive sure, and I can say just but I'm 100% sure we will be comply with the license timing. What happened before with they was putting bin outside or dust outside. As mentioned, I ordered already from a collection company extra bins. So I'll be sure to keep everything's in order. And I'm positive sure to do that.
Okay.
So the few things I mentioned before as well, I ordered already extra bin. I made a contract with the companies, CCTV on the site. I'll be cope with the licensing timing to make sure, and the extra is like food and hygiene and these kind of things, which is I have been health inspector have recently come over and they see the premises were completely clean, and they started me 4 stars for the premises. So I am sure I will comply with the license condition, and also
is there anything else you want to say?
No.
What he's saying is he's asked you a question, and are those all your submissions? Is there anything else you want to add?
I will. There's not only because the part of the other thing I understood. I reply back to the question.
Okay. So those are my client's submissions. Again, with the permission of the chair and yourself, there is one other point that I want to clarify, which I think will help in the response to your questions. Do I have permission to clarify the point?
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Gulzar Khan, the objectives of the licensing regime is obviously for the public benefit. Okay. Now you've said that you will comply with the timings. You will put bins. I'm sure that you will obviously have much enhanced management responsibilities. One of the concerns the question I would ask you is, what are you do have to, there is one of the allegations concerns antisocial behavior. Now, what are your response to that? What will you do to try and minimize antisocial behavior? If there is any, we're not saying that there is any, but if there is any, what contingency plans do you have?
I'm positive, sure. I will be keeping.
Do you understand what I mean by antisocial behavior?
Yes, I do understand antisocial
Good.
behavior. I will be completely. I will be positive. I'm positive, sure. If I keeping eyes on my worker, try to avoid that. Even in the report, I saw there was a delivery driver was making noise outside, and there was they say the laughing gas and party was outside. So I'm positive, sure this will not happen there. Okay. And I can assure all community members this will not happen there, because I will be standing myself there, and I don't want the same what happened past to that business and the close down. I've been working, as I say, in 21 years, and I spend my whole life savings in this business. And I don't want to put that, even my life savings, in risk. And also, I'm assured to avoid any antisocial behavior in the area there from my drivers and from my workers. I can give a guarantee for that, and I'm positive, sure I will be top of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's the point I wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
One last question from me, Chair, if I may.
Yes, Councillor.
Are you expecting to be at the business for most of your time, or what percentage of your time would you want to spend in the business?
I'll say, because in the area there is demand in daytime, which is a lot of offices and factory, and the food shop is quite far from there. And I got the school, which is not far from me as well, which is the kid can pop in, and they're walking about 300-400 yards to top of the road for the food. So I want to spend my 12-hour daily shift there, 7-day a week.
I think what the good councillor was saying, how much would your involvement in the business be? But you just said 12 hours.
12-hour full shift.
Yeah, 12-hour shift. I hope that answers your question, councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor. Thank you, Mr. Rahman.
Can I just add to that before we go over?
Yes.
Details of the staffing. Are they the same staff as was in the shop before? Is it new staff? Have they had training?
My old staff is new, from ship up to the delivery drivers, including myself there as well, because I have a good experience in this business, and I will be a chef at the business as well. So we are all totally, I got new staff, new delivery drivers. So that is the reason I give a guarantee, and I assure the committee members the antisocial behavior will be not happening there, because I change everything over there from staff to the delivery drivers, and including myself, I will be present there all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Khan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I don't believe there's any further questions. No. So if we go now to closing submissions in reverse order.
We haven't had.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Can we move on to those making representations? Please present their case now. So we've got licensing enforcement, Sarah Lavender.
Thank you, Chair. As you've heard, the previous licence for the premises was revoked by Licensing Committee following a review in June 2020. The review, in brief, found the premises licence holder not to be at or in control of the premises, and the new owner, known to me as Khalil Ahmed Zai, not following advice given by licensing enforcement, committing offences in the main by trading after the authorised hours, and causing a nuisance and disturbance to local residents with antisocial behaviour, noise and other disturbances into the early hours of the morning. The premises failed to uphold the licensing objectives and was very poorly managed. Licensing Committee agreed at that stage that the revocation of the licence was necessary. Following the application for the grant of a licence by the current applicant, Mr. Gulzar Khan Ahmedzai, licensing enforcement have concerns that if a licence is to be granted after 11, the licensing objectives would not be upheld, in particular, the prevention of public nuisance. Checks have been made at the premises the last 2 Thursdays, Thursday the 14th and Thursday the 21st of October, that they were not trading after 11, which they were not. However, I do have to say that the current times advertised on Just Eat, the delivery service, online service, state that the premises is open for collection between 12 p.m. and 11, but delivery is from 12 p.m. until 2 a.m. Those are the stated current advertised times on the website. This is part of the previous issue that we've had before, in that even if the premises were stated that they were closed, which wasn't always the case, they did open after the times, but delivery continued to happen until the early hours of the morning, with delivery drivers causing a nuisance. Delivery and the supply of hot late night refreshment includes not just that the premises is open, but they cannot be supplying it for delivery either. During the time that the premises has not been permitted to open after 11, we have not received any complaints. It seems to be an issue that was resolved by the premises closing at 11. I therefore don't see that we have enough insurances that this will not cause a problem in the future if the licence is granted. Thank you. The end of my submission.
Thank you, Sarah. Before we go to members' questions, can we move over to Jason, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I've spoken to the residents in the immediate vicinity, bearing in mind that there are tenants in the flats above that parade of shops. There are premises directly in front, residential premises, and there are residential premises directly to the left as you look at it. They're not convinced. And I support that comment with the following statement, in as much as I rang the premises at 18:45 on the 20th of October and said, "Are you open?" "Yes." "What time are you open till?" "Midnight." That clearly came from somebody in the shop on the 20th of October, which was last week. So that doesn't fill me with confidence. It doesn't fill me with confidence that, one, it was opened, two, that when a notice that the premises intended to apply for extended opening hours was placed on the front of the premises, somebody relocated it, and they took it off at eye length, and I've submitted photos to licensing, and it was relocated on the front of the premises about 7 foot high. While walking past that, you're going to miss it. So I don't know, this is a very subjective view, but there is a belief by residents that it was placed up high so people would miss it and the appeals time would time out. There were also concerns that although the applicant has made representation that he will use his best endeavours to try and minimise the antisocial behaviour from the staff, and he said he's replaced the staff, which may go some way. The requested opening hours will still attract patrons leaving the Black Horse at about 11 o'clock. And he has no controls over those patrons and their behaviour, which is especially drunken behaviour. There are a number of shops of varying use in that particular parade of shops, including a number that serve food. The very, very latest that the restaurant, Seven Spices, closes is 11 o'clock. Should committee decide to grant a licence to Rubino's, we would request that the premises closes for in-house collection, delivery, anything else to do with the operation of that premises. We would request that it closes absolutely no later than 11 o'clock so that the residents in the immediate area can have some peace and quiet and get to bed. Most of us are in bed by 11:30 and certainly by 12 o'clock. If the premises are open by 12 o'clock, it'll carry on that noise. As I said in my opening comments, we're not convinced that this will be upheld. As the premises, or certainly people in the premises this week, informed, if you like, a community test purchase. People in the shop saying that the premises were open till midnight. Their website states that they're open till midnight every night and 1 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays. So if that's an oversight by the new owner, then that needs to be changed. So the request from residents would be that if committee decides to grant a licence, that there is an accountable person on site, which has never happened before. You go in there and you're met with blank faces, and you were often told that the owner is not in the country or not in the branch. We would want an accountable person in the premises. We would want it closed at 11 o'clock. We would also like, and I know this isn't a direct licensing committee responsibility, but it's reflective of the way that the business has been run. We would also like that whenever the business is opened at whatever time they propose, maybe midday, that they go out and they litter pick, as the residents and the other business owners do. I live some yards from the premises, and I've been litter picking outside that shop now, even before they were closed in June. Pizza boxes, styrofoam boxes, paper, it's a mess. I have to say the immediate vicinity has never looked so tidy since June. And that's down to the fact that there are a number of pizza boxes that are, and all sorts of nuts strewn all over the central verge, people's gardens and so forth. We would also ask that a lot of the proprietors of the business in that parade of shops take pride in their business. And sadly, graffiti is a scourge of our community, but whenever the front of the premises are graffitied on, all of the other proprietors are out there as soon as possible and either removing it, painting it over, or taking it off with graffiti remover. I have to say that the premises, Rabina's, as you look at them now, are scruffy, and they've been scruffy for the past 2 years. There's been graffiti on the shutters for the past 2 years, and there's been absolutely no effort to take it off. It brings down the overlook of the area, and it attracts the wrong clientele. We would also ask, in addition to litter picking duties, that any wheelie bins aren't placed on the front. We had an enormous problem where Councillor Armstrong had to intervene, where they were the only premises in that parade of shops that kept an overflowing wheelie bin on the front of the premises. Now, I'm not sure if there are any bylaws in force to prevent the keeping of wheelie bins on the front, but there's certainly adequate space at the back. So we would ask that any additional or any wheelie bins are kept around the back, and they're emptied and not left overflowing at the back. As one of the proprietors from the nearby premises, a non-food related premises, stated that it hadn't been collected for ages. One can only assume that the bill hadn't been paid. The wheelie bin out the back wasn't a full-size wheelie bin, it was a half-size wheelie bin. It was overflowing and it caused vermin problems. So there are environmental issues associated with this premises, which I've just alluded to. There are the antisocial behaviour issues, which can only go so far with regards to the applicant's control, but by closing at 11 o'clock, in line with all the other shops and fast food restaurants along that parade, would go some way to alleviating that, especially when the pub is thrown out just at the same time. But the residents' view, certainly the residents' view in the immediate area, and as I say, some that live directly to the left, above it and in front of it, is that we are not convinced. And we want an accountable person should a licence be granted. We want an accountable person on the premises, because the last 2 years has been a misery for us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Benza. Is that all of the submissions on behalf of those making representations before we go to members' questions?
Yes, Chair, may I be permitted to just respond to the last two presentations?
And we're going to members' questions.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
If I may, Chairman, there are very comprehensive offers being made for dealing with the problems that have been there, given to us just in the last statement. And I think that covers most of the questions that we would have to ask.
Thank you, Councillor Beecham. Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask the representative for the residents above the shops whether there was an attempt to have a conversation with the applicants at all about what was going on?
Chair, yes, I'll respond to that. Councillor Straker-Wells, it's not just the residents above the shop, it's the residents on the Bristol Road South, as far down beyond the school. It's the residents in School Close, which is the junction of Bristol Road and school closed. So it's not just the residents above the shop. It's a great many other residents, as a matter of fact, quite a few, I would hasten to add, Councillor. Yes, Councillor Armstrong went in on our behalf twice. I've been in twice, and one of my neighbours has been in at least once or twice. He's actually gone in to complain about the noise late at night. I believe that Councillor Armstrong was met with, yes, we'll do something about it. Whenever I have been in, and other residents have been in, it's on a couple of occasions I've personally met with, my English is not so good and the owner is not here, he's in Pakistan. So yes, from personal experience, I've actually been in on a number of occasions. I actually went in on one occasion when the previous owners started to break up the crumbling drive outside the off license into little pieces of tarmac, and there are metal bollards outside my apartment block to stop parking. They ripped up a number of parts of the drive, and they were playing target practice at about 12:30 of the night. And I remember the time because I was watching the television. And I could hear a pinging sound, and I wondered what that was. And I looked out the window and I could see them playing target practice with the broken tarmac. I gathered a carrier bag's worth of broken tarmac and went into the shop the next day and attempted to speak to them. And it was, we'll speak to the owner. Me no speak no English. We have CCTV. We'll look at it. And one of the culprits that I spotted on the night was actually in the shop, and he didn't say anything. So to answer your question, Councillor, yes, on at least 6 occasions we've tried to speak to the previous applicants, and we were met with a brick wall.
Thank you. Just one more question, if I may, Chair. It's about the times, because I think you made a very telling point about the difference between the times that were allowed, the times for opening, the times for delivery, and the advertised times on presumably the websites. Again, was this something that you took up with the applicant?
The opening times, yes.
The opening times.
Yeah, and I believe Councillor Armstrong did as well. And they said they weren't open, even though I live within sight of the premises. And as I mentioned earlier on, Councillor, I actually rang them at 18:45 on the 20th last week. Are you open? Yes. What time are you open till? Midnight. Well, that's clearly an hour after they should be open. And that's under new management.
Can I add, Chair, to that, please?
Certainly so.
I think a lot of what has been just discussed was relating to the previous applicant. However, the issues that had, I have no confidence that it's not going to continue, given the fact that, like Jason said, that they were told that they would be open late, and that the advertised times on the website are still that delivery is available until 2 AM currently now. So even my 2 previous checks on the 2 previous Thursdays of physically going to the premises after 11, they were closing at that time, and we were turned away. However, I'm not 100% sure that delivery wouldn't continue afterwards. Like Jason added about the fact that he would not be happy with them to open after 11. They would not require to have a licence after 11. They're only required to be licensed for late night refreshment after 11 at night. Therefore, that is why I'm of the same opinion that if a licence is granted after 11, it could continue to cause public nuisance disturbance to residents, and the issue would arise again that has previously been there in the past. So without real assurances that I feel that this won't continue, I don't see that there's any way around it other than to not grant a licence. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Rahman, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much, and thank you for the other submissions. Chair, just a few points. With regards to Just Eat that was mentioned, that states that the premises are going to be open outside the permitted times, and also on the website. These are operational matters, and my client will attend to these to change these to whatever if a license is granted, to whatever times the license will permit. And with regards to the concern about an accountable person, well, the accountable person is quite obviously, if the license is granted, is going to be Mr. Khan. He's going to be there. He submitted himself that he intend to put in 12-hour shifts, and therefore, the license is going to be granted, to him. The premises are owned by him. So the issue about an accountable person, I think is has been addressed in any event. The litter picking, and we accept that this is a parade of shops, right? And obviously, this isn't the only business that's open there. My client, will obviously contribute together with the other shopkeepers to maintain the aesthetic position of particular.
Mr. Mann, could you just keep? I thought you were going to ask a question, but we're moving on to. We're going to sum up now. So, would you like to make your comments in the summary?
Sorry, Chair. Just to can I just interject, Chair? The normal running order is that the objectors will sum up first, and then Mr. Remen will have the opportunity to sum up for the applicant, Chair. So I think we've heard all the evidence. It's the summing up and the responses to the evidence that's been presented.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I wasn't familiar with or I didn't pay attention to the order. So was it my position to ask questions after the submissions?
It was members' questions now, but you wanted to ask a question?
Well, yes, I would like to ask a question with regards to the submissions that have been made regarding graffiti. Well, graffiti is obviously, yes, they have a responsibility, the shopkeepers there, but...
So you're answering the question now. So can we keep this to the summing up?
Okay, sorry, Chair. Okay. Yeah, the graffiti issue is it's a menace to any area. But the fact of the matter is how does my client's business...
Mr. Roman, we'll move on to the closing submissions now, and then you can make the points in the closing submissions. So first of all, in reverse order, we'll take the closing submissions from Mr. Bensai and Sarah Lavender, and then you can make your closing submissions afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually BJ, not Bensai.
BJ. Oh, sorry, it says Bensai on my notes.
So no, that's right. In summary, on behalf of the residents, we're not convinced. Should the premises be should the premises open, as the licensing officer has alluded to, they don't need a license to operate until after 11. We would request that the premises closes at 11, which is common with the latest closing premises in that parade of shops. Most of them close at 10, with one or two of them closing at 9. So we would request that it's not granted a license beyond 11 o'clock. We would ask that there is an accountable person on site, so any issues can be brought to them and by residents, either in person or by phone, if any issues arise. And we would ask that the general upkeep and the aesthetics in the area are maintained. As I said, Rubino's Pizza is the only place that looks scruffy with graffiti. All of the other premises are nice and tidy and graffiti-less, and the front of the premises are kept tidy. So in summary, we're requesting that it's not granted a license beyond 11 to keep antisocial behaviour down and the health, well-being and quality of life of residents. It's closing at midnight. A lot of people, including some with children, are in bed at that time. Midnight is just way too late, and the premises shows a greater degree of discipline that was shown before.
So that's why I give 4 stars. He was happy. The officer was happy.
Mr. Rahman, could you put your microphone on mute, please?
Yes. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we're just having the closing submissions now, so could you just mute your microphone until it's your turn to speak?
Yeah, of course, Chair. I'm just trying to.
Thank you. So, as I was saying, Chair, so there's the due consideration for other residents and a request that the premises isn't allowed to open beyond 11 o'clock for the quality, well-being and health of residents. Mixture of elderly, young, those with children, those with health conditions. It's not just above the premises, it's all along the Bristol Road. It's in school close at Bristol Road. There's the aesthetics and the tidiness of the premises and an accountable person on site. So residents can either ring up or approach in person if there are any issues, and not to be told, as previously over the last 2 years, that we don't speak English or the owner is not in the country. I read through the previous documents, and the defence by the previous applicant was a lot of these complaints were false and malicious, and they were made because the complainants were racist. Well, I'm going to switch my camera on and show you that I'm from a black and minority ethnic background, so the previous argument that it was racially motivated doesn't really hold water. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Sarah Lavender, Licensing Enforcement. Would you like to make your closing submission?
Thank you, Chair. We've heard all the evidence, and I don't think we can be assured that the additional hour sought by the application can uphold the licensing objectives. Although Councillor Beecham raised a very good point at the beginning that I would have expected in the submissions made by the applicant to see some sort of evidence regarding the application that he has purchased this new business. It would have been raised by licensing enforcement whether a Mr. Smith was the previous licence holders. If and the new applicant was a Mr. Smith, it still would have been raised whether there was a connection between them. The same name obviously would raise concerns that it is just somebody being a name on the application. So I would like to see, if a licence is granted, that evidence that the sale has come through and we have a completely separate application. However, I still feel that granting a licence, we cannot be sure that the licensing objectives will be upheld with the evidence that we've heard today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Does the applicant or their representative wish to make a closing submission now, please? So, Mr. Ahmedzai.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. Chair, a number of points have been made, and I shall now make the submissions instead of seeking clarification or asking questions. First and foremost, I will deal with Mr. Bajai's and what he said, and I will try to surmise or try to submit or touch upon that in my closing arguments. Mr. Bajai clearly is a resident there, and he's impacted by the activities of the businesses, and you know, he has every right to raise his concerns where he feels that they are appropriate. But I sense that Mr. Bajai's submissions or presentation has been, as you quite rightly pointed out earlier in this meeting, subjective. And, you know, while, yes, he may have had a bad experience with, you know, being a resident there with the shopkeepers, I don't know, I can't comment on that. But I would urge the committee members and the committee to take on board the fact that the presentation that he's made is very subjective. And with regards to, if I move on now, the business itself, I am instructed, is actually 4-star rated. So, you know, for a business to be 4-star rated, it's quite an achievement. Secondly, the aesthetic of the area. Yes, every resident, the licensing regime, we all expect the standards of aesthetics to be kept up, but I mean, with regards to there are other businesses there, and the issue seems to be here about timing, which is the crucial point. And because of the objectives of the licensing regime, the timing, then it is alleged that may contribute to certain unhealthy activities such as antisocial behavior.
Can I just comment on a point that you raised there? You said it's a 4-star rating. By whom is it 4-star rated?
May I just take instructions?
It's by Birmingham City Council on the 24th of September, a few weeks before.
Is that for food hygiene?
Yeah, for food hygiene, yeah.
So it is a 4-star rating, presumably accredited by Birmingham City Council in September this year. So it's not, one also has to bear in mind the investment that my client has made. And I think that shows a propensity for someone to make an investment in taking over a business that he means well, and he intends to comply with the licensing regime, and also to meet the expectations of the residents, but he has to be given an opportunity. I mean, my client is now basically guilty by association by the looks of it, because the previous owner has not complied with his obligations and responsibilities. My client is a completely new owner, and I think it would be it would be unfair for him to be made guilty by association. The licensing committee are well within their rights to impose conditions on the license if they are minded to grant it. But I think not to grant the license to my client would be unfair to him, taking into consideration the commitment he's made in financial commitment, and the legal commitments he's prepared to make as well. With regards to graffiti, I mean, to answer that, Chair, graffiti is, unless I'm mistaken, it's a criminal offence. It's criminal damage. And, while, yes, it is accepted that everybody, has a duty of care, but they can only, unless the graffiti is specifically connected to my client's premises, I think it would be unfair to say that the graffiti is there simply because of my client's premises. No, the graffiti could be there for any number of reasons. People coming out from a pub could be there for any number of reasons, not just necessarily just because my client's business is open there. So we have to take into this, we have to look at it objectively.
Mr. O'Malley, I don't think they're questioning the reason it's there. It's just a case it is there, and what is the establishment doing about it? What action will they be taking?
Well, it has not been proven that the business or my client has not taken any action against it.
Or intends to.
Yeah, so that's the position. So in my humble submissions, I would say that my client is a new owner. B, that my client has made a financial commitment and a legal commitment to the premises. My client is the commitments are to provide a valuable service to the local residents and to the community. And there is a school there. There are factories there which operate during the day. My client provides a service to them. The fact that the business is a 4-star rating, the fact that my client has already taken steps by saying that, he's ordered CCTV to be a much more presence of CCTV, and the fact that, the management has been changed. So there's a completely new management. Well, what's happened is happened in the past. It says there's a question from the legal advisor on the chat. Could Mr. Rahman clarify the points made about the current advertised operations? Absolutely. The points, the advertised, the times advertised on whether it's the website or Just Eat or any other service, can I just take instructions from my client?
I would like to reply to the question regarding the timing on the Just Eat. The reason stayed there because every business, if you took over the documentation, everything's going to the Just Eat management service, and they will access to the app, which is called Partner Center. From Partner Center, the owner can manage the timing and adding or removing things from the menu, adding menus. Currently, I have spoke this morning before I came here to the Just Eat, what they advised me. They received my documentation. Hopefully, they will give me access in next day or 2 or 3. Then I can adjust the timing. So they have some legal requirements to send the documentation over to prove that you're a new owner. Then they will. So everything I submit, which was the documentation, my IDs and everything. So now they're willing to access, give me access to the Partner Center, which is a control of the apps. So I can adjust the timing, and that will be my next step. It is in my mind, and that will be my next step, and it will happen next day or 2, 3. I can say prepare not longer than that.
Okay. Chair, so can I just confirm to the chair that you will remove the timing in accordance with what the City Council will allow?
What the City Council will allow, what the license timing is. They allow me to do business, but the most shop is open, as Mr. Bajal mentioned, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. There's no shop I see around the area. They're closing at 9 o'clock. But Tasty Pizza is 400 yards from me. Is closing at 11:23. Bella Pizza is down about, can say 25, 30 shops down from my business premises, is closing at 11:23. Every license, a shop have a license in that area around to that timing. So that's why I reduced from 2 o'clock early in the morning to 11:23, which is the most shops, pizza shops is open in that area. Exactly, they're closing at 11:23. I mentioned the name is Tasty Pizza. The license officer is aware of that. They give a license, a permission, the council give permission. Also, the Bella Pizza is just, as I mentioned, 30 shop away from me. It is also closing at 11:23. So that when I saw they're closing and I asked the license timing is that time, so I decided to cooperate with the timing with the council allowing other shops. So as he mentioned, that is the timing. Regarding the timing, as he mentioned, I spent my whole life saving, which is 23 years, 21 years. I work hardly, supporting my family and kids through this business, and I will be definitely 100% coping with the requirements.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Chair, there is a question from Mr. Bajai regarding the graffiti has been on presumably on the shutters of these premises for 2 years. Mr. Kulzar Khan, are there?
I don't think it's a question, I think it's a statement.
It's a statement, yes, but it's good that we address everything, Chair. Now, are there any graffitis on your shutter?
To be honest with you, I can see the health inspector, food hygiene inspector popped in 2-3 weeks ago. Deserve 5 stars as he see the condition of the shop, the cleanness and everything. But he say because the shop was currently closed, he cannot operate. Few things he say, I will star you 4 stars. Mm-hmm. But the graffiti outside, if Mr. Bajal don't like the color of the signboards or he got some.
The question is,
there's no graffiti at all.
Is there graffiti on your shutter?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I cleaning them all the time. Everything is there.
For argument's
with
sake,
a picker.
For argument's sake, if there is graffiti, can you give the committee an undertaking that you will remove that graffiti from your shutter?
I will definitely 100% remove it, as I want the shop to be look clean and tidy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Aman, is the applicant saying that he's willing to reduce the operating hours to 20 hours per day?
On top of that, Chairman, can I have clarification of this 11:23 figure?
Yeah, is that 11 p.m. meaning 23 hours daily in line with other premises? Is that what he's saying?
23:59.
I've never heard people refer to 11:23 when they're giving the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Your Honour, yeah, sorry, sir, absolutely. I think I need clarification on that point as well. Right. 11, you see, in the 12-hour clock, 11 o'clock is 11 o'clock. In the 24-hour clock, right, 11 o'clock is 23. So are you saying that they have 11:23, or are you saying that they have it till 11 o'clock, both in the 24-hour clock or the
Apology, that was my mistake. I was mean 23 hour and 59, 23:59. So
okay.
The most shop is open there. The license been granted by Birmingham City Council up to that timing. So 23:59, which is a Tasty Pizza, Billa Pizza, and there's a Indian restaurant. Even I got a restaurant next door to me is Spicy Meat. They have a license at 23:59 as well.
Okay, just one point. Are you willing to reduce the hours to whatever is with the other businesses of a similar nature? Are you willing to reduce the hours in line with the nature of the other businesses which are like yours?
Yes, 100% I will reduce the
Chair, is there anything else?
Yes.
Let's have clarification.
Would you like to come in? I've got.
Yes, Chair. Just to clarify, the application relates to a grant of a premises licence for the provision of late night refreshment, which is only required after 11 p.m. at night. If the committee were minded to restrict the hours to 11 p.m, you would effectively be refusing the application because the licence is only required from 11 p.m. onwards. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David.
That's the clarification I was looking for. And again, there was 2 figures given as to what the closing time was. We've got to be so careful with this. We want a certain time of closing, and we'll refer to it as one number, not a jumble of numbers.
So, can you just clarify, Mr. Aman, your client, the hours that he's requesting?
My client is requesting the hours of 23:59.
23:59. Okay, thank you.
So that's 24, virtually.
Less 1 minute.
So that's midnight.
Yes, less 1 minute.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Beecham. Mr. BJ, did you want to ask something? I see that you're typing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the applicant's legal representative said I was being subjective. I'm not being subjective. I was merely conveying the views of residents. I'm not a subjective person. I deal with fact, with what I can see, what I can hear, and I can see and what I can hear is the same as the residents can see and hear. And to us, an opening to 23:59, as Councillor Beauchamp has just alluded to, is effectively midnight. That is 1 hour too long, and in our view, unacceptable.
Thank you. Right, so I think we've now heard all of the closing submissions. So I'll ask now ask all parties to leave the Microsoft Teams meeting, and the members and the committee lawyer and the committee manager go into the private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chair.